that common thread is what really hit me when I discovered El Salvador, because what's happening here is this congregation of all these like-minded people. And after being here 2 years and building a team and friendship and family and community here, it's like it feels like a freedom libertarian Bitcoin conference 24/7. The people here are incredibly warm and welcoming. The overall spirit of freedom that, again, to most of these locals is like deer in the headlights, like what is happening? But those of us that get it, oh man, the liberty that's exploding here like a volcano right now. It's just this, and it's like Ron Paul said, man, you can't stop an idea whose time has come, specifically referring to the concept of liberty and self-sovereignty and that passion. And that's what's happening here. This place is lit, and you can't put that genie back in the bottle.
Will, it's good to get you here in the studio.
Good to be here, Mike. Thanks for having me.
We ran into you at Vegas at the conference, and you're doing a real estate development right up the road from us here, and I didn't even know about it. That's how things are here. There's so many different projects and things going on that I feel like anytime I drive somewhere, I see something new. So it was exciting to hear what you guys are doing. But before we get into that, I want to talk about kind of what brought you to that. You came out of the self-directed IRA field, and I think that's how you were introduced to Bitcoin, if I'm not wrong, by a client that wanted to put that in. So would love to get a little bit of your background and your Bitcoin story and kind of what's eventually brought you here to El Salvador.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, buddy. Well, my background started in financial services, and then I was red pilled a number of years later and realized that, gosh, everything that I've been told about the financial system and savings and is not entirely true, right? Your broker tells you you're diversified. When I watch my friends and clients and parents and over the years, over the crashes, get wiped out. Why didn't your fixed income bond portfolio save you? And so I quickly got into alternative assets. I was initially gold and silver guy. Got into the self-directed IRAs, started a company in 2013 where we were doing self-directed IRAs.
And did you, sorry to interrupt you, but did you get into that just because you saw like, hey, this is a good thing for clients to have, but there's no real good way for them to do it where they're actually holding the physical properties rather than just an ETF?
Exactly. Yeah. It dawned on me that all of this, phantom financial system, instruments, paper, electronic, isn't real wealth. And that this unique type of self-directed IRA allows the individual who thinks like me too, to get their money, often a large chunk of their life savings, right, out of that stock, bond, mutual fund, space and into something they believe in, right? Which for us, or in the early days, was gold and silver, right? I knew about Bitcoin. In fact, Jeff Berwick got me into Bitcoin, or maybe Max. I can't remember. I knew about Bitcoin early, but it was, it was interesting to watch the gold industry, the gold and silver industry, the Peter Schiffs and the other guys of the world, because most of them dug their heels and were like, oh no, and then some of us, I guess maybe the more libertarian-minded ones, we were like, wait a minute, this is potentially a new asset class. This is something tangible, physical, outside of the banking system, And so, yeah, the self-directed IRAs in the early days, we were doing them for metal stackers that wanted to buy physical metal and store it in the location of their choice, not in some government-controlled warehouse.
And we'll get into that because you told me something interesting that people still, even with a self-directed IRA, can't hold it in their home, which I was not aware of. But maybe before we get into the details, give a little background of what a self-directed IRA is, because there'll be a lot of people that, they've heard of an IRA, maybe they didn't have an IRA, but they don't understand
Mhm.
what a self-directed IRA is and why there's a need for it.
Yeah, so you've got 401ks, IRAs, a number of different um, tax favored retirement savings vehicles. And when you have one of those, you are generally limited to the investments that that fund or institution offers: stocks and bonds, mutual funds.
Hey guys, just a brief interruption. We'll get back to the exciting show here, but I just want to really ask a favor that you guys could make sure that you're subscribed if you're watching this on YouTube. If you are listening to this on a podcast, please take a second and review this. You don't even have to write a lengthy review or anything at all. Just click the number of stars that you want to give us. It really helps us in the algorithms to make sure people are finding out about what's happening here. All right, back to the show.
So a self-directed IRA is where the individual basically has more control, has more flexibility, can invest in things like real estate, Bitcoin, gold and silver, private equity, you know. So it's a flexibility thing. It allows you, and there's different types of self-directed IRAs, I should clarify. But yeah, it gives the individual the ability to invest that capital, invest that money that's in that, special tax qualified space. It allows them to have more control over it and more flexibility and invest it in, so it was for me as the clients that I gathered over the years were like-minded. They
Yeah.
were people who were coming to me because, hey, I saw you on this podcast or I heard about what you guys are doing. And yeah, I've got a chunk locked up in wherever and I want to get it out, So not get it out like tax distribution,
Yeah.
get it out, but get it out and put it into something I believe in.
Without triggering that tax event.
Exactly.
And because I did look into setting up self-directed IRA early because I wanted to own Bitcoin in it.
Mhm.
And it is a little involved. So maybe talk a little bit about how I think you generally have to set up is it a corporation or a LLC that basically holds your IRA for you? Maybe give a little bit of the details just so people get an understanding of what's involved.
Yeah. So there's different types of self-directed IRAs. The most common is where one goes directly to the custodian, the self-directed custodian, like InTrust, Forge Trust. These are all, self-directed custodians. They'll roll over their fidelity money to one of these self-directed custodians, and you can purchase gold through that custodian, but it has to go in their approved vault. And you're limited to just gold and silver. What happens if we wake up and your gold and silver is skyrocketing and you want to take profits and put it into something else? Well, now you got to go set up a different type of self-directed IRA. So there's also Bitcoin IRAs, right? Where one can, and that's a custodial direct model as well. And you have some great ones out there now, like Unchained and Swan, I think, does them as well. But they have multi-sig options. They have, it's not just an ETF Bitcoin holding, okay? But the self-directed IRA that we set up and that I wholeheartedly believe in is the IRA LLC, it's called. And it does involve the creation of a limited liability company that your IRA purchases. This limited liability company functions as a holding company, an investment asset holding company that you're the manager of. So you're now the investment manager of your IRA portfolio under this shell company. Shell, that word has a bad rap, but they're not
Yeah,
all.
it's just a wrapper.
They're not all illicit, right?
Yeah.
Right. So these are just honest people trying to protect their own savings, So, and then that LLC, we've done them in just about there are certain states to avoid, obviously, for regulatory and tax reasons, and there's flexibility to go in other states too. So we counsel and advise people through that. We do all the work. There's paperwork and regulatory stuff, and that's our job.
And you want to make sure you don't screw that up, because if you do, then it becomes.
Big
And I've
time.
heard horror stories of people messing something up or running afoul of one of the guidelines, and then it's basically like all their assets were distributed to them, and they paid the penalty plus the taxes on it. And
Yep. Big tax hits. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So you have to be careful on the regulatory side, and then also on the do's and don'ts. Making sure that you don't cross any of those boundaries. One of them you mentioned was the metal storage, right? So, and that was gray area until a handful of years ago, arguably gray area, and there was finally a court precedent set after someone was audited. So,
I know another one with real estate, you can't live in it. So you can't buy yourself a home and put in, or even vacation home, I believe that you can't use
you're
it.
not
So
supposed to use
yeah.
it. That's right. Investment only. Yep. There can't be use or benefit between the individual and his or her retirement assets. So it's investment only. If it's real estate, you also don't want to provide sweat equity. You want to outsource everything because that's providing benefit
Hmm.
from the individual to the account, right? Vice versa. If you stay there, that's the account
Yeah.
providing benefit to you. So, but it can be an investment. Buy a piece of land, sit on it, later distribute that to yourself, whatever.
So you were working in this realm and you had somebody come to you and say, "Hey, we want to put Bitcoin in our."
Yeah. So 2013, again, I knew about Bitcoin, but it wasn't like something I would think, gosh, we dabbled back at 3, 4, $500 Bitcoin. But it wasn't like, gosh, sink 100 grand into this right now. We obviously had some people do that, and God bless them. They'll never work a day again in their lives. I know some of them, but yeah, for us, it just, yeah, I remember one of my friends and clients saying, "Yeah, I'm using this to put Bitcoin in it," and I was like, "My God, this is like the best platform." Because you have full control on storage, on custody of the asset, you know? Um, and so, yeah, things just led from there. I think we were that was the first person to put Bitcoin in an IRA back in 2013. Because it was way before even Bitcoin IRA or any of the custodial
Hmm.
programs. Um, yeah, so we've had, 15 years of like-minded clients buying Bitcoin, buying gold and silver with their IRA funds. And, it's there's been a common thread with these conversations with people over the last 15 years. And that, oh, Will, it's so nice to talk to you because I very rarely, if ever, get to talk to like-minded people, you know? And, um, and that's been a real common thread. Oh, everybody thinks I'm crazy. My kids think I'm crazy. My wife, hopefully the spouses are aligned, and usually they are or close enough. But that common thread is what really hit me when I discovered El Salvador, because what's happening here is this congregation of all these like-minded people. And after being here 2 years and building a team and friendship and family and community here, it's like it feels like a freedom libertarian Bitcoin conference 24/7. It's like the conversations that we have around the table are just, we got clients coming down, experiencing it for the first time. So there's all this, positive emotion and just great giddy experience around what's happening here.
No, that's how I always explain it to people, exactly that way. It's like living at a Bitcoin conference. You just run into people at the street. You go to eat at the local restaurant, and there's Bitcoiners there. You strike up these conversations, and so that I think is what makes it so fun
Hmm.
to live in El Salvador. Before we delve into that, I want to circle back and get into the details a little bit and finish off the things with the IRA, just because it's something you mentioned. I think it's important for people to know. You'd said that recently there was a court case saying that if you have gold or silver in this, you can't have that in your home safe. Like that's considered a distribution. So obviously that brings up the question, well, how does that relate to Bitcoin? Can
Yes.
you just have that in your hardware wallet that you're custodian, or are they going to look at that the same way? Obviously, we know Bitcoin, you don't physically possess it in your home, you just possess access to Bitcoin that sits on the blockchain. It's not in any one physical place. And so how is the IRS dealing with that? What do you tell your clients? What's the safest way? Obviously, Bitcoiners, I'm assuming most of them want access to that. They
Yes.
want to, if things hit the fan and they got to leave the whether it's the U.S. These are going to be Americans, obviously, because this is a product only for Americans. If they need to leave the US, they want to be able to take that Bitcoin with them and not have to worry about getting access from somebody else. And so how does that work? Like what are the risks, and what do you advise people?
Yeah. So prior to about 3 or 4 years ago, there was no court precedent for even gold and silver, which people have been putting in IRAs for a long time. Um,
And were a lot of these people custodying in their own homes?
some were,
Yeah.
yeah, some were. And because again, these were people that had come to the point where they're like fed up with the inflation and the
Oh, yeah.
government, massive loss of
Well, last thing
trust.
you want to do if you're going down that rabbit
Is
hole is have somebody
give them
else.
all your money,
Yeah.
right? So they're like, look, I'm either just going to take all this out and take the tax hit,
Yeah.
but okay, here's a way where. So some people, were improperly storing it at home, I can imagine, but yeah, that court case, a couple was audited basically. No one prior to that had ever been audited that had an IRA LLC that had gold under their pillow, so to speak. So that few years ago set the precedent. They were slapped on the wrist with the distribution and penalty, taxes, interest, whatever. Um, so that set the precedent. You can't store the gold and silver at home. It was always in the code, albeit vague. So it was still like, don't recommend this.
Yeah.
But it does allow you to store the asset in the vault or storage facility of your choice, right?
Including outside of the US.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And there's a vault in Texas, South Texas, small town, that I love. I mean, I personally use that. I recommend it to clients. There's certain, vaulting places like this one that I think are probably safer than home storage, quite frankly. And you have instant liquidity. You can pick up the phone and liquidate. Dollars hit your bank account. You can flip into Bitcoin or whatever. So yeah, but as it pertains to Bitcoin cold storage within an IRA, we don't have court precedent. We're still operating in total gray area. So as it pertains to cold storaging your Bitcoin in an IRA LLC, there's a couple things to consider. The IRS is in this case talking about, with the gold and silver, the actual physical possession of the underlying asset. As you mentioned with Bitcoin, there's no custodial. It's all about access. You're not holding the asset; you're holding the keys. Well, what else can you hold keys to in your IRA? A rental property, right? You can own a rental property in your IRA that's sitting right over there, just like the Bitcoin that's sitting right on the blockchain that we can verify, right? The rental property sits there. I have the keys.
Yeah.
I can go in there. I can walk around in it, and So I imagine that when it does come up in court, if it's properly argued, if it's properly presented, if the individual holding a Trezor or something, an uninformed judge might go, "Yep, you're holding that Bitcoin right there." But if they have it in a brain wallet, all they have is a word seed, what's that word seed? It's a key. It's a string of random words, Your Honor. How am I in possession of the asset here? This is a key, like the key to my rental property in my real estate. So that would be the ideal scenario argument when that day comes, because it will come.
Well, I wonder if the IRS will even be a little reluctant to bring the case because they don't want to set the precedent. A lot of times they don't want to take a case that they're going to lose. They'd rather leave it as a gray area that they can kind of hold over people's heads.
Correct. Yeah. Because once they lose, there's that precedent, And with Bitcoin, yeah, I think the powers that be want to control. They want to custodially control it as best they can. Look at the ETFs. Look at the big push coming out of the BlackRock and the government, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, as a hard asset, libertarian-minded individual, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. But again, that was my motto with silver and gold for a long time. But after being in the industry a long time, dealing with clients, a lot of clients, and a lot, there are places to store that are just as safe, I think.
Yeah. So we'll at the end, we'll make sure people have all your contact info if they're interested in contacting you about the setting up an IRA. They'll be able to follow up on that. But now we'll shift gears back to El Salvador and how, you saw that you just had all this like-minded people in the world, people you'd been maybe dealing with on phone calls in your prior business. Now in real life, they are here moving their families, moving their businesses, some of them getting passports, like making this their home.
Hmm. Yeah, so gosh, rewind a little bit. COVID, COVID happened. I was living in San Diego, California at the time, and that was just not a great place to be during COVID if you're a freedom lover. Um, so my family and I and kids, we migrated back to Central Texas, outside of Austin area. We got an RV and like traveled around when everything was like crazy and shut down. That was really fun. Like, all right, well, the kids aren't in school. Let's go, Dad, get the laptop. You can work from anywhere. So, uh, and then kind of that post COVID like depression, if you will, like whatever, I was there, it was like, ugh, this is ugly. Like,
Yeah.
it's just painful to watch humanity go through, right? Especially loved ones and others. And then I got a phone call that said, we have to go to El Salvador. Bitcoin's legal tender. Elizabeth Warren wants to throw us in a concentration camp. Like, we got to go. Let's go check it out. So I came down April of 2 years ago and landed, took the cab right to Zante, and it just hit me like a big old ton of bricks. Kind of like feels like the early Bitcoin days. Like I remember that Austin conference in 2014, I think it was. Like Charlie Shrim was still under house arrest. He was there on Skype. Antonopoulos was there speaking to an empty room. It was, and I remember it, and I remember it really hit me then. I was like, oh my God, this is going to change the way we do everything. So that's how I felt when I landed in Zonte a couple years ago, because, I have a lot of real estate experience, just marketing, sales, investing, lived in a bunch of different markets, places that I knew were going to be amazing. And I've watched it happen the last 25 years. Charleston, South Carolina, Park City, Utah, Ocean Beach, San Diego, Austin. And I got the same feeling here, right? And Costa Rica too. I've traveled, I've studied abroad, I've watched Costa Rica develop over the last 25 years, and this is a real interesting parallel study because we're 2 doors down and very similar, right? Only this country's just opened its doors. It was literally all but shut down for 30 years from violence and corruption. And so that pendulum has peaked and is now shifting the other way. And the development of Costa Rica, watching that and then seeing this opportunity, I'm like, gosh. And you have even other things that make it even, I think, a better opportunity than Costa Rica. Accessibility. I can fly on a 2.5-hour flight from Houston, land right over there, and I'm 45 minutes. I'm home.
Yeah. In Costa Rica, a lot of times you're driving for 6 hours from the airport just to get
to the Point Break, which we have 12 of in Surf City, from Punta Roca to K61. I mean, that alone, when you talk to like surfers that have traveled the world and surfed, a lot of my buddies, myself, I've had buddies come down there like, what? You have all these Point Breaks? Like, oh, I can go check this one. I go check. Yeah. So it's really rare. Accessibility is huge. I've never been in a country and felt so welcomed, like never. And, there's places in Mexico and Costa Rica now where they're like, get out of here, gringo, And here it's very warmly welcoming. Sometimes in the lineup when it's firing, you can probably, I imagine, get into some, but not if you're, if they know who you are.
Yeah, and if you're mellow, if you're not being hyper aggressive and paddling, around people and stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's it's all.
Yeah, yeah. I said, man, it's amazing here. I said we won't really see it change much until the guys are taking the waves and the girlfriends. that'll slowly start. But no, the people here are incredibly warm and welcoming. The overall spirit of freedom that, again, to most of these locals is like deer in the headlights. Like, what is happening? But those of us that get it, oh man, the liberty that's exploding here like a volcano right now. It's just this, and it's like Ron Paul said, man, you can't stop an idea whose time has come, specifically referring to the concept of liberty and self-sovereignty and that passion. And that's what's happening here. This place is lit. and you can't put that genie back in the bottle. I really I don't. And what's happening here? There's so much spiritual energy behind it. This land is so ripe for that with its history, and yeah, I see an incredible revolution, renaissance happening here. Um, I mean, that reverse brain drain, this huge concentration on this tiny little country and economy of Bitcoiners coming here. And I've been talking to these people on the phone for 15 years. I like and working with them down here the last two. And these are some of the smartest people in the world, coming here. The heart capital, the brain capital, the actual capital, all descending on this tiny little place is like just, you think of that market cap scenario,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, man, it's this place. What's happening here is revolutionary. I feel like it's not only a gift to the Salvadoran people who've been, suffering for 30 years, but it's also a gift to these liberty-loving people all over the world. It's a place for them in real life to actually drop in. And that's that common thread that I keep hearing from people that I've talked to over the years. And that's what we as a conscious, liberty-loving minded community are thirsty for. We're thirsty for this community, right?
So you found all that, and then I think like a lot of us, you're like, okay, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of creating this community and unlocking the potential that's here. And so you came across a property, or you had already bought one place first, and then how did that develop, that you started developing this property that's going to be targeting kind of liberty minded individuals?
So I got here in April 2 years ago, and I love the beach. I'm a beach guy. Although I'm about to become a mountains guy after discovering the climate and the proximity and what you can get in these
Yeah.
mountains right behind us. Only 30 minutes from the beach, maybe 45. Um, and yeah, I saw, okay, Zonte is sold out, untouchable. There's nothing beachfront in Zonte 2 years ago. Like, and there were maybe a half a dozen peppered across all of Surf City. This 12 towns, 10 towns of what is it, about a 5 mile as the crow flies. Um, and I said, okay, well, Zonte is already priced out. There's tons of more Bitcoin capital that's going to be coming here. They're going to it's likely they're just going to spread this way. And so I watched over the last 2 years that all the beachfront of Surf City sell out. There were a couple Concha Leos a few months ago, but those are gone. So there's nothing in Surf City beachfront on the market. And so anyway, yeah, Playa Cocal, which is about 20 minutes, just the other side of Surf City. Here we're on the west side. I live over on the east side. Bought that property, and that was a really great move. It's just about kept pace with Bitcoin, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that is
I can't
impressive for
surf
real
on my
estate.
Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't get
yeah,
coconuts off my Bitcoin or
yeah, yeah.
mangoes. So I'm not saying go all in, keep some Bitcoin, please, but diversifying into the offerings of this land you'll be rewarded.
Yeah.
So yeah, we scored some property actually just west of Zonte, about 10 minutes from here to the west, right above a pretty famous surf break, and 23 acres. We came across it. It was like too good to be true. And I went to my friend, who's an old Bitcoiner, capital partner, and said, "Hey, dude, if this is real, we got to find out if this is real, and if it is, like, let's figure something out." And so we did, and we partnered on a development project that we're doing. It's about 23 acres. We're going to do 21 like-minded. It's a like-minded community of 21 liberty lovers. We're going to leverage glorify and leverage the natural resources of the land. We've got 100 plus fruit trees.
So we have up here on the screen, this is kind of something we took from your website, but that's
Mhm.
kind of the view from the land, I believe.
Mhm.
Um, so you got a
Yeah.
nice ocean view from some of the
You've got ocean
locations.
view from some of the properties. You've got pretty awesome rock formations and mountain views and valley views.
Paco, can you cycle through some of those other? Yeah,
Yeah, there's one of the
I
rock
love that.
formations in the valley to the back. There's a aerial of the little town right below us. And that's the bluff right above our property, which we also own. Right now we're in the permitting and engineering and architecture and all of that process, which will probably be another 6 to 12 months, hopefully closer to 6, before we're platted and approved and can close on home sites. It looks steep right there, but it's actually not that. Now the cliff is, the
Yeah, yeah,
backside
yeah,
is, but the rest of the property's pretty well um, pretty well
yeah.
sloped.
So do you have the lots all drawn out already, or just the first four, or what's the?
No, those first 4 are pre-sales where they get a discount off of the launch prices will be. They put in a deposit, and then they'll get first pick
Mhm.
too of that phase 2, which is probably gonna be all those ridgeline lots. So no, we haven't been able to cut the lots out yet, but we've had engineering and LiDAR work out there. We're in the process now. We are the experts we're working with. I've talked through kind of the vision after hiking the property lots of times now and seeing, just visioning out where it's okay, the road, okay, we've got runoff water, we got a fruit tree forest we're not going to touch. We met with the engineers and permitting people, and they were like, okay, well, if there's any tree over 20 centimeters that you want to cut, we have to go through this. I'm like, we're not cutting any trees over 10 centimeters, um, because we don't have to. I
Yeah.
mean, we don't have to. And so, yeah, when we get to phase 2, which will basically be once everything is designed, platted, okay, those first 4 will pick theirs. And then by then, I imagine we'll have a waiting list because there's already been a decent amount of interest, and we're pretty early. It's really cool though. Everybody's like-minded. We're all, my partner and friend, he's an early Bitcoiner. This isn't about, you see the developments going on around here, and some of them make me just, ugh, where they just cram as many lots as they can into the community, and there's a little tiny piece of green space over here, and it's clearly just all profit, and it just packed in. And so we're doing the opposite of that. This isn't about making tens of millions of dollars. This is about making an awesome impact and just being a part of something
Yeah.
so rad, you know? And I'd like to, think of it as a way, like this is a way to take people with capital that might be bored, right? They're just sitting on capital. And this is a way to put some of that to work, what we're doing with my friend. He wanted to buy a beach rancho house here and do like a wellness center, cold plunges and spas and massages and, the organic juices and tea bar and all that stuff. So we're basically going to do that on a community. We want to do like a really cool wellness community. There's really strong Mayan vibes over there. You're kind of at the very southern end of the Mayan territory. And so we want to do like from an architecture standpoint, community planning standpoint, rainforest Mayan meets Japanese Buddhist vibes. So we'll be using some of the best builders in the country, and people can pick their builder. I imagine we're not really there yet.
Yeah.
We're libertarians at heart, but like Mike and I were talking about before the podcast, you can be like a staunch libertarian and not want any rules until your neighbor, does something next to you that infringes.
Put the discotheque in.
That infringes
Yeah.
on your liberty,
Yeah.
doesn't it? It infringes on your privacy. It's kind of like this libertarian social contract thing, but we have to take it a step further in order to protect the community. I mean, I'm kind of like the fiduciary for this development. Like, how do we make this win-win for the forest? We're donating. So we had a fundraiser at our beach house for the House of Life. Give them a plug. Bob is the gentleman that runs that organization, and they basically rehabilitate and provide housing for rescued pregnant teenage girls that are rescued from number of different scenarios.
And not just housing, like help them think about what they're going to do with their future and go forward, and education. They're
Big
doing
time.
Bitcoin training with them now.
Totally.
They're
Setting up
yeah,
treasuries. Yeah, it's really incredible. They have this whole multi-stage process that they have to be rehabilitated, right? And then once they get to that last stage, they need housing and
yeah, like a
employment.
path forward.
And so we're like, holy crap. We have this fundraiser. One of our local Bitcoiner friends, God bless him, was inspired by the story of the orphanage, and he said, I'm gonna build you guys a house. I'm gonna donate a house to the girls. And I'm sitting here, we're planning out this development, and I go, we got the land. We're gonna donate you a little portion of the land on the community, and we'll have our friends or other investors will build housing for you, and we'll house a life girls and their babies that can manage the community, but not just clean floors and pools. I want to provide entrepreneur. There's so much entrepreneurial
Yeah,
capital coming here and great ideas and guys like us that we don't really need the capital. We just want to do something fun and uplift people. So we have so much fruit on the property. We have the thoughts of doing a mango tamarind jamming company, chutneys and jams, which the gringos will pay top dollar for, and that can all be owned by the girls. So we've already been walking that walk in the last couple years as far as uplifting locals. Our local pool guy, Kevin is his name. We helped him take 3 months for a special scholarship training to get this really high level surf training certification. They taught him English. So now we've helped him start his own surf school. So he's not just a pool guy
yeah.
anymore. He's still our amazing pool guy, and I love him. But yeah, hopefully he's training other guys to do the pool work so he can, so stuff like that. We actually just went to his house. He got hit by a car last week, and
Was he on a motorcycle?
no,
Oh,
bicycle.
on a bicycle. Ooh.
Bicycle that we just bought him literally 2 days before because he was walking all the way from El Faro to Cocal, so we got him a bicycle, and then he gets hit by a car. And then we go to the store. Luckily nothing's broken. He saw a little local MD, but we go and got his medicine, and we come to see him, and we go into the shanty town village at the end of Punta Roca over there, which is we went deep in it too. Like
Yeah,
we were
it's
the
still
only
pretty
gringos.
rough there.
Yeah, we were getting some head turns, but it's just that when you get that experience, and it was cool because I had some of my team members with me. I was like, guys, we might be stepping into a little culture shock here. But you get that and you realize it doesn't take much, man. It doesn't take much for us to elevate these people in a way that's unbelievable. And it's not about handouts. It's not about, handing them $100 bill. That's the worst thing you can do, but you can create opportunities and uplift people, man. And that just feels good, So yeah, we're stoked, dude. It's like everything that's supposed to come together. It's divine. I couldn't do this by myself. I'm a sales and marketing guy, but I'm literally getting all of the pieces coming together to make it a reality. And we're going to keep doing these. We want to keep doing these like mini conscious communities, not huge ones, 20, 50 homes, whatever. And the land opportunities here are such that it's just jaw-dropping, So I can get a capital investor who's like-minded, who says, yeah, let's build a community. All right, let's work out a deal. Okay, we'll get you the land. We'll build the dream, sales, marketing, all of it, to engineering, architecture. And we're talking permaculture and regenerative technologies. I mean, I don't even know where this thing's going to go. It could be one of the coolest little micro communities ever, And so when you're doing this with heart and passion and you're just trying to make a difference, it's not about the money. Everybody's got to get paid, obviously. But when you're dealing with Bitcoin capital that, has pretty deep roots and isn't in this for,
No, and you find there's a lot of people that, they were in Bitcoin early, and what are you going to do? Just sit on your Bitcoin? Like it's still just money. So if you're not using it to do something productive, it's kind of a waste.
Yeah. I mean, It's probably the rarest asset on the planet, so I understand we don't want to part with it, but if you haven't been here, come here and we could show you some properties that are like probably like buying Bitcoin, at $1,000. No kidding. Um, yeah, what's happening here is incredible because of this 30 years of tyranny, I'll call it chaos. There's a huge market divergence.
Yeah.
You've got people like us coming in here that get it, that see what's happening. I mean, I'm watching global wealth managers that I follow talk about El Salvador becoming the next Singapore of Latin America. If we get even a fraction of that, it's crazy. So you've got that incoming vision and capital coming from Bitcoin and an expanding, source of capital, and assuming the price keeps going up in dollar terms. And then you have this local populace, a third of which left, right, during the chaos. A lot of those thirds are landowners,
Yeah.
that are now coming back and don't really know what's happening. And so there's opportunity here. Put it that way. There is so much opportunity here, and there's such a powerful renaissance, rebirth taking place here. And there's so many people like us scattered all about, and it's so cool to like Murph and what he's doing over at Murph's Life, and we've been in contact. Hopefully, we're gonna go over there and shake hands next week. But like,
Yeah, his place is beautiful up there.
dude, I
mean,
only found out about him like 6 months ago.
yeah.
I'm like, how are you? What? This you're doing? Like, we want to piggyback
Yeah.
a lot of what he's doing. Like creating Bitcoin retirement accounts for the staff and regenerative bio-organic farms. And I mean, dude, that's so. Yeah, it's incredible, man. I'm stoked. I'm stoked to be here. I'm blessed. This is the Mecca. El Salvador's the Mecca for libertarian, liberty-loving, red-pilled, orange-pilled. You got to come.
I think that's a good note to end on. Was there anything else we didn't cover, or is that
I think we covered it.
hammered it out?
I think we hammered it, brother.
Nice. So make sure, let people know where they can follow you on Twitter or Nostr or
Yep.
wherever else you are. Give people all the ways to get a hold of you.
Yeah. So
We'll put them in the show notes too, but it's
Cool.
it's good for them to have them verbally.
yeah, Club Cocall, clubcocall.com is our local company and presence. Unbound Assets is the Texas-based alternative asset consulting company, IRAs and stuff. On Twitter, my personal profile is Will in Paradise, and I produce a lot of fun El Salvador sunset photos and whatever. So yeah, feel free to visit either website or both. Shoot us contact us or email or call. You can call, and the number will probably ring right to me. So
Sweet. Perfect. Well, we'll put that in the show notes too.
Cool.
But yeah,
Cool,
people
man.
can get a hold of you for whether. I mean, they could even set up their self-directed IRA and then use that to buy property in El Salvador, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So-
I mean, the right property offerings down here, and you could, yeah, you could buy something and sit on it, and it might give you Bitcoin returns in 10 years.
Yeah. All right, Will. Well, I'm excited to see how this comes along, and when you guys have some construction up and going, we'll have to have you back on to give us an update.
Awesome, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for paving the way down here for all of us, by the way.
Hey, it's been a wild ride, but it's been a privilege.
Amen, brother. Appreciate you.